Our first speaker, Bruce Fein, graduated from Harvard Law School in 1972, and after a federal judgeship, the clerkship, went to work for the Justice Department, where he ultimately served as Deputy Attorney General. He has authored several volumes on the U.S. Supreme Court, the U.S. Constitution, and international law. He has assisted some 36 countries with constitutional revision. He's been an adjunct scholar with the American Enterprise Institute, a resident scholar at the Heritage Foundation, and an adjunct professor at George Washington University. He appears regularly on national television and radio to comment on foreign affairs, law, terrorism, the Constitution, and related subjects. He writes a regular column for the Washington Times, which Bart and I, when we're preparing our FFF email update, look for every single day. We can't wait till another Bruce Fein article comes in, because we almost inevitably link to every article he gets published there in the Times and elsewhere. It's a column that provides, is among the country's best and most insightful defense of civil liberties. The title of Bruce's talk tonight is From Checks and Balances to Executive Despotism. Please welcome Bruce Fein.
Whenever you hear words of effusions like that from a host, always remember they're not said under oath. And whenever I make presentations that perhaps may drag on longer than expected, I always remind myself of a quip that sage philosopher Sam Johnson remarked about Milton's Paradise Lost. In his Lives of the Poet, he was remarking how every page dazzled with metaphor and profundity. But he observed in his closing, none ever wished it were longer. When the Constitution had been completed in Philadelphia in 1787, Benjamin Franklin emerged, and he was encountered with an elderly woman who asked, "Doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" And he retorted, "Madam, a republic if we can keep it." And that's what I'm speaking about today. We are saddled with the responsibility of keeping a republic which has been vandalized for the last decade by President Bush, his administration, and to a lesser degree, his predecessors. Now, anytime I address an audience or even write a column, I ask, who cares? Why would anyone care to read or listen to what I'm saying? Why should we be spending time thinking about this? And my answer this evening is, you ought to care because you want to be citizens involved in the struggle, the difficulty of self-government, not vassals or serfs whose liberties are at the sufferance of a government, who tell you that you are to obey them because they're infallible. No. If there was anything that distinguished the American Revolution from anything previously, it was their understanding that the purpose of government was to help secure our rights, inalienable at birth, to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's the struggle that we have as individuals, taking responsibility for the decisions that government makes, influencing government policy, that makes life worth living. We make our own mistakes, but there are mistakes. If there are errors, we accept responsibility for those. Politics is difficult, it's arduous, it's a struggle, but it's worth it, because otherwise we're reduced to children who simply take instructions from a benevolent, purportedly benevolent government, like Platonic guardians. The Founding Fathers would have rejected the idea that they would accept Platonic guardians, no matter how genius, in exchange for reduced gasoline prices. That's not what the United States is about. That was not why the American Revolution was fought. It was fought to preserve our right, the dignity that we have as human beings by being involved in self-government. Now, I want now to describe and portray to you how our republic has already been virtually destroyed by the theories of power articulated by the President, accepted by the Congress, and acquiesced in by the people. It reminds me of something Tacitus said as the Roman Republic decayed. Few dared the most atrocious crimes. More participated, and yet all tolerated. That's the pathology of our republic at present. Take the issue of post-9/11 theories of governing. The President has staked out two propositions that have been accepted by the Congress and the American people. Proposition 1, we have now entered a state of permanent warfare, a condition which James Madison acknowledged was irreconcilable with freedom. Now, why is it permanent? Because the war is against a tactic, terrorism. It's against persons who would engage in a terrorist event. And until the President says there are no such terrorists threatening any American at any time, any place in the Milky Way, we are at war. And that's why you'll understand no benchmark has ever been insinuated that, if satisfied, would end the state of war. Now, there's a corollary to that proposition, which is equally alarming, if not more. Namely that since a terrorist act can be committed anywhere in the world, all of the world is a battlefield. We, ladies and gentlemen, in President Bush's view, say accepted and endorsed by the Congress of the United States, are sitting on a battlefield. And of course, under laws of war, if you're on a battlefield, military force can be used to seek to kill you. If you make an error, that's a consequence of the inaccuracies and errors made in warfare. Moreover, if you're on a battlefield, you can be subject to military law, court-martials, suspension of habeas corpus, and otherwise. That is where we stand today, ladies and gentlemen. And when I've raised these issues of what the theory of government is by the Bush administration that would provide a limiting principle as to whether or not he can exercise every power that a dictator would cherish, oh, he hasn't done it yet. It's not that he doesn't have the power, it's that, but we are enjoying the freedoms at his sufferance. I say, have you read the Declaration of Independence? It says, no, my rights don't depend upon the sufferance of President Bush or Vice President Cheney. They're inherent. In fact, the whole reason we have a government is for you to protect my rights, not for you to invade them. Now, these seem to me very simple propositions, extrapolated from the Declaration of Independence and the entire theory of what this United States is about, conceived by the Founding Fathers, original intent. So when I was in the Reagan administration, that was the gospel. We were trying to further the vision of the country as understood by those wise men in 1787. So right now, the theory of the government of the United States is all of the United States is a battlefield. President and his successors can impose military law anytime he wishes. Now let's examine then some of the possible mitigating factors of such a startling proposition. Number one, the President has said, we are engaged in warfare. That's the greatest threat to Western civilization in the last century. It is greater than Hitler, Stalin, Trotsky, Hirohito, Lenin combined. Right? You ask them, well, where are all those troops? You know, there was the 3 million man Red Army. Where are those scientists building nuclear, biological, chemical weapons? Where's the 8-9 million barrels of oil and all the economic sinews? Oh, that doesn't matter. Hey, you can call an elephant a mouse with a glandular condition and get away with that, right? That's what goes for truth in Washington, D.C. Manufactured effort to try to frighten us all into yielding up our civil liberties. We understand the Constitution is not a suicide pact, but also is not a license for the government to lie and to inflate problems 8 million-fold in order to encroach on our cherished procedural protections that distinguish us from unfree people.